Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Get Jashed. Today I am so happy to have with me Milana Istakhorova. Milana has a doctoral education in clinical psychology and uses that to inform her work in health and fitness, which is really important because there's a lot of depth, there's a lot of stuff going on there. So she's been in the fitness world for 5 years, working to create safety and healing for her clients, and has a firm belief that fitness has the power to transform your entire life, not just your body. And I am on board with that. Milana's approach to fitness and nutrition is all about unlearning the all or none way of diet culture and learning to take baby steps that feel good and celebrate every tiny win along the way. So when we fall in love with the process, the results then come. And this mindset is such an important mindset, especially in this world. Like, I come from that yoga teaching world as well, and you see a lot of that. So I'm so happy to have someone like you joining me. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So I guess, like, just what made you get into this area, and what spurred that importance within you in the fitness and nutrition world, and speaking of, like, sharing and doing work around trauma and the language we use around diet nutrition?
Yeah. Oh, loaded question, I think.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
Oh, no, it's perfect. It's perfect. I'm just like, I gotta, I guess, go back into my story a little bit more in my head. Well, I didn't used to be into fitness at all,
Hmm.
ever. And in fact, I avoided it like the plague. And I only joined a gym and started working out because I was dating somebody in fitness. And so I kind of was like in it, but I hated every minute of it. And in fact, I was sorry, I'll sort of skip through some of this other part, but I ended up sort of creating a really big life change. I left that partner and I found myself desiring to go to the gym because I was overweight. And I was like, hey, I need to go to the gym and I need to lose weight. And so I went in and I started doing whatever I could, blah, blah, blah. And I quickly learned that I was essentially causing myself more harm than good by
Mm,
pursuing by very strictly and only really pursuing a weight loss goal. So basically, health didn't matter. The ability to move well didn't really matter. I didn't really know what that meant. And so I found myself in like that yo yo diet and yo yo workout cycle, right? Where you go
mm,
so hard that you burn out or you get injured and then you can't. And I did that for so many years until I found a trainer and he essentially opened my eyes to, hey, did you know that fitness is more than just weight loss? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? And so he would take me through these workouts because I had a really bad shoulder injury. And I was like, okay, but how is this helping me lose weight? Like, it doesn't matter. And he's just like, okay, but you can't lift your arm up to reach the wine glass at the top
yeah.
the cabinet. So what do you really want here? I'm like, okay, you're right. Like, I want to reach for wine. And so I started opening up my mind to the fact that movement and fitness and eating can be more than just for weight loss,
Mm,
and really started diving down that path. And when I did that, I found myself also making more transitions in life, more big moves, and then eventually working in the fitness industry. And that is, I had to have my own sort of journey of, how do I put this, of finding the clients I wanted to work with too. Um, Sorry if I'm going off on a tangent
no,
now.
no, I tangent away. This is all part of the process and the point, right? Like, yeah.
So I ended up in at a big box gym eventually and working with all these clients who want to lose weight, because what I was still promoting at the time was fitness is more than weight loss, and I can show you how to lose weight while taking care of yourself and in that trauma informed
Mm,
way of like keeping yourself safe and healthy while you're pursuing weight loss.
mm,
And that process is just very slow because we don't do things in that all or nothing, like go hard, restrict your eating, blah, blah, blah. We don't do any of that. We just take things slow, baby steps. And then eventually I found my way out of the weight loss industry completely, which I will help somebody if that's what they strongly desire. But it will always come from a health first perspective.
Mm,
Because if we are healthier, taking better care of ourselves, like in terms of movement, in terms of nutrition, in terms of hydration and sleep and mental health, then oftentimes weight will fall off. As I was saying in my intro there, it's like you fall in love with the process and you do things for you to take care of you. Excess weight comes off if it needs to, right? If it needs to, if it wants to. Um, Sidebar, there are definitely hormonal things that sometimes
yeah.
harder. And so we're not going to dive into that though.
I think I think that's such a great approach though, because often if you are wanting to lose weight, there's an element of stress there, which can actually contribute to like holding on to weight. There's like I need to feel safe though because I'm stressed, and it's it's counterproductive and it's counterintuitive to the whole process anyway. So then it becomes about like I see it a lot of people like self-loathing almost like of like, well, I have to fix myself.
Right,
Yeah.
totally. And I love that you just brought up that feeling of like safety and holding on to weight
Mm,
too. And I do want to say, like, I'm very much health at every size sort of oriented, and I firmly believe that you can be very healthy in like a variety
yeah,
of bodies,
absolutely. Yeah.
regardless of what you look like, and you can also be unhealthy in a variety of bodies, right?
Yes.
I want to put that out there and make it very clear that you never have to lose weight unless it's something that you want, or unless I guess perhaps like medically, right? um,
Yeah.
and I love that you talked about feeling safety, because I had a call with a client yesterday, and she is dissolving a partnership and having a lot of, stuff happen with that. But along with that, she is deciding to take better care of herself because she sort of used to and then lost a little bit of that in her time with him. And even though it's not even a drastic change, but she's noticing that she's releasing weight along with some of the stress of like
Yeah.
having to be in this partnership. And it's just so interesting the way that we do protect ourselves, and we don't even realize it sometimes. Um,
Yeah, absolutely. I've noticed that, in my most sort of stressful life situations, like I have biology, I have like a biotype that puts on weight quite easily when I'm stressed, so it's just like, okay, well, this has to come back to my mental and emotional health before even my physical output, even though like I do work out, I do like do weights and everything like that, but that's more to feel strong in my body, so I feel capable. So there's a change in language as well, and that's not very like in the people around me that I've like surrounded myself with, it is prominent in that kind of fitness world, but generally speaking, like in Instagram fitness world, it's not always the most prominent way of wording things.
so that's yeah, man, the Instagram world,
Yeah, it's great.
Instagram fitness, yeah, is something special in and of itself. And just to also put it out there, there are a lot of really incredible fitness professionals out there
Mm,
that definitely will give you facts and truth, and in a trauma informed sort of safe way and in a real way, versus just saying you just got to do squats and they'll make your booty bigger or whatever. Like, okay, who cares if my
mm,
butt is bigger if I hate myself? Like, it doesn't matter.
yeah.
It doesn't matter. Um, yes, yes. I think too that the way that I sort of shifted out of psychology and out of the mental health field and into fitness was with this whole realization of, when I participate in a fitness process, whatever that looks like for me, right? Whether it's I have 10 minutes a day right now, or I work out for an hour 7 days a week, whatever it is, I feel better. I
Mm,
psychologically feel better. I feel my mood is improved at all times. I feel less critical about my body, even if it doesn't change, even if it looks exactly the same as it did, a month ago, for example. I am less critical of my body because I'm able to tune into other things about my body, like how strong am I? How capable am I? Am I recovering in my fitness well? Am I not? Okay,
Mm.
maybe I need more vegetables, more protein, things like that. And so it really takes off of this, I kind of want to say like patriarchal obsession with the way that we look, which
Yeah.
is really, I mean, it's nice to admire yourself, and we don't need to fall into like hating our bodies.
Yeah, I have a question for you as well, like to do with that Instagram fitness world, because I was thinking about this the other day actually. Like we went from the heroin chic of the 90s, like where that was very the aspirational goal, and now we're fully formed in like the strong fit women kind of not persona, but like that ideal as well. And that's an amazing improvement. But do you find that there's like danger in that as well, because it's still aspiring, like it's still dependent on body type and not so much on that self-love either? Like what's your position on that?
Yeah, that's a really great question, actually. And I think there is definitely harm to be had there. And it's perhaps you're right. It's not as problematic. It's not
Mm,
like it's a spectrum and we're getting towards the other end slowly.
yeah.
Um, and for some people, they thrive in that, right? Because they want to be like bodybuilders, for example, or power lifters. And for them to see somebody, a strong woman, represents who they are doing that, like that could be very powerful and beautiful. And we just have to also remember that movement is expansive, right? Like we don't
Mm,
only work out in one way. Dance is a workout, yoga is a workout, walking, running, jumping jacks, trampolining, hula hoops. There's something that what did I recently see? Like drumstick workouts,
oh wow.
mace workouts where you're holding, like all
Yeah.
of it, all movement counts. And so we need to remember that. We need to remember that, yeah, yes, we have this, and we have all these other things to strive for. And with most of these things, let me clarify, with many of these things, they can be inclusive of various body types.
Yeah, yeah, I like the use of the word and as well. Like it's not a but, it's not a oh, it's this or but this. It is like yes, and
Yeah,
we can also like we can celebrate that, because I do think that is worth celebrating in a way, but when it's held up as the ideal and that's the point of it, or that's the point of like why, like what you're measuring yourself against, I think is the issue, then it becomes that issue. It becomes the, well, if you're measuring yourself against anyone, no matter what they look like, or no matter um what body type trend is in, then like that's still the crux of the issue. So it's almost like that's the external still.
totally. Yeah. And that is actually the way that I approach all of fitness, and that is, and all of nutrition, and really just life,
Mm,
is steering away from that like polarity of all or none, of this or that. Really, our whole life is and our whole life
yeah.
is,
Yeah.
we are, I recently did a Google search for a workshop that I did, and I searched how many shades of gray are there, right? Just out
Mm.
of curiosity, because we think in black and white often. And
That's such a good search. Yeah.
it said that the human eye can see at least 500 shades of gray. That is a
Wow.
lot of shades of gray. And so if we can apply that many shades of gray onto a continuum thought process versus just a this or that, like in nutrition, we have good and bad foods. No.
Mm.
What if we had a continuum of 500 shades of gray, and we eat more of some foods, we eat some other foods, and we eat less of other foods? And you can decide for yourself what that means, right? So if you are a bodybuilder and you strive for that particular body type, well, maybe you want to eat more non-processed foods, maybe you want to eat more protein, maybe you want to eat more carbs. But if you're just, like, for example, for me, I eat somewhere in the middle all the time. I have no desire to be a bodybuilder. I have no desire to be super skinny. I like to be wherever I'm at. I really like to be strong. If I'm training for a Spartan race or something, I'll eat more carbs, more protein. I'll get stronger. If I'm not, I won't. And so it's really about allowing yourself to move through the spectrum whenever, wherever, and always accepting and owning where you are on that spectrum when it
Mm.
comes to food and fitness and all of life.
Yeah, it's almost like it's like that deeper level of functional fitness. It's not just about how can my body move, but it's also like with the diet element, or the, like, as in nutritional diet, not going on a diet element. It's really like about, okay, what are my goals right now about what I want to achieve? And that's not about the aesthetic look of my body, but what does my body need in order to achieve, like, yeah, the Spartan race, or to feel comfortable, like, at the beginning of COVID lockdown, like, what does my body need right now to feel comfortable and healthy? Like, it's a totally different approach then, rather than what do I want my body to look like?
Exactly, exactly. And
Yeah.
we can always, I was gonna say, and we can always
And
the
yeah.
the body, like how I want my body to look as an element there. I think that there's something beautiful about that. Like we can really for the most part, we can really control that. We can really play with that.
Mm,
And it's fun. It can be fun to
yeah.
do. And I think that's what I mean too when I talk about like enjoying the process, is really just enjoying your time, having fun with experimenting with different foods, experimenting with different ways of movement, experimenting with different ways that your body can look. Like, oh, look, my biceps are coming in. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Or, COVID happened. I couldn't lift weights for a while. Okay, my biceps left. Cool. That makes sense. Doesn't mean that
Mm,
I'm terrible. It doesn't mean anything. It just sort of is what it is. And I really love, if I may sort of shift us a little bit, I love that you
yeah.
started talking about COVID, because COVID has been a thing for.
Oh, it's a thing. Oh, yep.
All right. So the collective trauma around COVID and fitness and movement and food, with
Mm,
the whole like coming up with the COVID, what is it, the COVID-19 that the
yeah.
added,
Or like
and
the COVID kilos, or yeah.
like having fitness professionals sort of attack that as COVID.
Mm.
It's like, you don't want to get fat while you're, being stuck at home. And it's like, actually, maybe I do.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe I do. And
Maybe I
maybe,
just want the excuse.
right? And like, maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it doesn't matter. However, maybe we want to stay healthy. Maybe we want to boost our immune system. Maybe we want
Mm,
to feel strong. And maybe we want something to take our attention away from how scary and from all the trauma that it's causing in the collective and in our individual lives. Like, maybe there's more to fitness than.
yeah. Yeah, maybe it's an awareness of the hypervigilance that we're feeling. So I need more, like, restful kind of workouts or practices or yoga or whatever, rather than having to worry about, like, getting up and being in extra hypervigilance as well.
Totally, absolutely, absolutely.
Mm. I just feel like there's like this big sigh around it all. Um, What, speaking of trauma, whether it's like that collective trauma of COVID, or like your own personal version of trauma, how do you find that that plays a role, like in your experience of how people show up to either fitness or nutrition, either or, like, how do you find that that plays a role?
Yeah. It's very interesting, because I think what I've noticed in fitness is, in fitness and nutrition, people lead with their trauma. And
Hmm.
perhaps that happens everywhere. Perhaps that is just like how we live. But most certainly people lead with their trauma. And so it's like, and they lead with this diet culture, toxic fitness knowledge, right? Because that's all that they know for the most part, because that's what's loudest on the internet. That's what's loudest.
Hmm.
And so you pair that, and they've had their trauma with the and with the diet culture and whatever, and then they have their own personal trauma with their bodies and with food and their parents and grandparents and whatever, getting being raised and everything around sort of movement and food. And so they'll come in and they come in with pre sort of conceived notions of like, I have to restrict all of my calories, for example. And it's, I have to eat only 1,000, which please nobody eat 1,000 calories. Like, please, it's not necessary. Disclaimer. Or I
Yeah.
guess I don't. Um, and my invitation is always, what if you don't? What if we get to experiment? How do we do this in the safest, smallest way possible? What if we don't take anything away from you? What if we never
Mm,
take anything away? What if we just add things into your life? What if we add a salad? What if we add 5 minutes of movement? What if we add a little bit of breathing? What if we stop taking things away and we create this, like, we essentially are standing up against diet culture and everything it stands for. I'm not sure if I even fully answered your question or if I'm
no, yeah, you did for like because you're right. Like there's so many things in that. For starters, like we do lead with our traumas. I feel like like when there's subconscious traumas, I would say like we generally will lead with that because that's our subconscious kind of just running the show. Um, but it is a great approach to it as well, as like it comes back to that safety piece, especially when we as humans will all have some kind of trauma, whether it's big T or little t trauma, like it's all there. And what's the safest way for us to work towards our goals while still seeing any difference that we want to make, or rather feeling any difference that we want to make, and still feeling safe in that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think I just want to acknowledge too, like I guess I wanted to say it earlier, but I lost
Mm,
it for a moment. There's a lot of people have a child, like, because of their trauma, whether it's big or little t, they have difficulty connecting in with their bodies,
mm,
and really feeling things. And so my invitation to my clients and to everybody listening too is, when you're beginning a fitness process, really just take the time to connect in with your body. So for my workouts, my clients spend 60 seconds breathing, and that's the beginning of our warm up. I
I
invite them
love
to get
that.
as comfortable as physically possible. We sit, like, if you're sitting, like you're sitting tall, just, I mean, I'm cueing breath as well, because breath work is a really big part of creating safety and fitness. It's
Hmm.
a big part of creating safety in life, I believe, breath work, but certainly in fitness. And also breathing better and more efficiently is going to support our bodies, in
Yeah.
movement. And so we take time to ground ourselves in the moment, and I cue them into releasing just whatever doesn't serve them in the moment, and really being present and feeling the sensations in their body, and inviting them to just feel and just be, because that is oftentimes so scary. It can be
Yeah.
so terrifying for people. And then once we begin to move, the cueing is always slow down a little. There's no need to rush through this movement, because trauma often invites us to speed up so that we don't have to feel and we don't have to be in the present
Hmm.
moment. And so
Yeah.
always coming back into the present and coming back into, what is my body feeling? Okay, am I supposed to be, I'm in a squat. What do I feel in the squat? Do I feel my feet on the floor? Do I feel my weight? Is my weight shifted forward into my toes? Is it shifted back into my heels? Is it even? What are my ankles feeling, right? And just like almost like a body scan, um,
Yeah.
and getting really just connected to the movements and the sensations. And oftentimes I will invite my clients to, let's say we are doing a glute bridge, for example, where you're well, not really isolating, but focusing on the glute muscles. I'll invite my clients to put their hands on their booty. Put your
Yeah.
hand, get connected with your body and find safety in that. As you create that safety, as you build that safety, you will get stronger, because that mind muscle connection is so much more powerful at that
Hmm.
point. And you will start to begin to heal some of the disconnect that the trauma has created.
Yeah.
Ooh, sorry.
Yeah. No, I love that you brought that up because like that's a lot in my work as well is just like the embodiment work, whether it's with veterans or whether it's with other people. And like a lot of that doesn't feel safe. So, like when things like embodiment is used as a buzzword rather than the true meaning of it, which is what you're expressing and what you're explaining, is like the find safety. In what ways can you feel safe right now? And if that's like a small way, then great. Like, if you're like trying to activate a glute muscle and you just need to use your finger rather than your whole hand, great. Like that's what works for you. So I love that clarifying of that for people as well, because it can just be like this whole big concept of, you know, feeling safe in my body, like what? Or like feeling sensations, maybe I can't feel sensations right now. Like, yeah, it's just such a grounding way that you've explained it there.
Totally. And earlier you had asked, how people can get there. And so you can
Mm.
certainly get to a place of safety and moving sort of through trauma on your own. And it is always so much more supportive to have help and support. And
Yeah.
I mean, certainly I am one of those people that can support, but I am also connected with a slew of fitness professionals who are very much trauma informed and very much do this work for this purpose. Like our mission in life as a collective is to help people create safety in their bodies through fitness and nutrition and through movement, because that's just my platform, right? I use fitness as this platform to create meant to help people better their mental health. That's always been what
Mm.
it's about for me. I guess at the core of it all.
And like there's a part of me that wants to go into like that ideal world and like imagine what would that look like when people do feel safety in their bodies in that approach.
Mm.
I don't know if you can even answer that, like, but part of me wants to know. Like just so people can start to have this idea, and I know it will look different for different people, but what could that feel like for people?
Yeah, I think it feels like freedom. I think it
Mm,
feels like freedom, and that's just the first word, and it just keeps
it's a
sort of
great
circling
word. Yeah.
because I guess when I think of the opposite, I imagine like tension and constriction and restriction and stuckness, right?
Mm,
That's kind of what I imagine. And so certainly what I notice with my clients is a sense of freedom and this sense of getting curious about life again, getting excited about life again,
mm,
getting excited about trying new things and exploring their bodies in different ways. Um, and when it comes to food too, like when we learn the freedom that food can really be, oh, it's so much more fun. It's eating is so much more enjoyable. Like we get to just
yeah.
have more pleasurable experiences in our life. And when the pleasure of life takes over the pain, certainly we're going to feel better and more free and sort of live with more ease. And
Mm,
that I think too, if I may just sort of what's
yeah.
the word? This is the word.
Segue, or yeah, that one.
I can't see when you're listening, but um I think one of the biggest things with all of this is like throwing a bomb into all of the rules. Like
Mm,
forget all the rules that you learned when it came to eating and when it came to fitness, because I think with rules, again, more restriction, lack of freedom. And so when we can say, well, who said that you have to eat 1100 calories? Why? Why
yeah.
is that rule? Who said you can't eat ice cream? Why did that
Mm.
become a rule? Like who the fuck said? So I'm like, let me not curse on your podcast real quick.
No, it's fully invited. But
Who
you're
said
right.
who said that your squat has to look like this? Literally, I have however many clients I've had in my life, hundreds. Almost everyone has had a variation of that perfect textbook squat.
Mm.
I don't squat perfect textbook, not even close. My body doesn't move like that. Guess what? Because I'm not a textbook and I can't
Yeah.
photoshop my body into being like I can't photoshop my joints into doing different things. Like I just can't.
Mm. Yeah.
And allowing us to just get rid of these rules.
Yeah, and even like the ones that are well intended. One of my trainers like was saying, like the 10,000 steps a day thing is that there's actually not huge research on like that specific number, but what it does is it encourages people to move. So like looking at the underlying thing of this is just encouragement to move your body. And if that is in 10,000 steps, that's great. But if you're stressing and not reaching that, but you're doing other movement that may not be like, calculated by your watch, like that's great too. It's just about making sure that you do move and making sure that you are doing those things that just encourage that. It's just
Yes,
the encouragement. It's not the rule. Yeah.
absolutely. And I think that part of that, like for example, the 10,000 steps, like I don't know that I ever walked 10,000 steps. Maybe when I was working in the gym and like just having
Mm,
client load, right, for the whole day. But it wasn't on purpose. It was never been on purpose. And I think that there it is the invitation for the mindset shift out of all or nothing, right? Because people will
yes.
look at 10,000 steps and think, I'll never get there. How am I supposed to do that? Oh, I just won't walk at all. I just won't take any steps. Or, and they do that with workouts. Like, oh, I see, there's people that work out. I'm supposed to work out. What is this? The thing is, I think it's 30 minutes a day, 7 days a week, right? And you think, okay, well, if I can't move 30 minutes a day for 7 days a week, then I shouldn't move at all. And it's like, well, can you move one day a week? Can you
Yeah.
move 10 minutes a day? And
Yeah.
and therein lies sort of the baby steps, and also coming into a safer place of like ease, and just it's fine. Like
Yeah.
do what you can with what you have in the moment, always, like what you can with what you have, and you will find yourself in consistency, right? Like in consistency, not inconsistent.
Yes. Within consistency.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because I think people often think too, like if I don't work out 4 times a week for an hour every single week, then I'm not consistent. Oh, I fell off and all of a sudden I'm not consistent and I've ruined all of my progress.
Mm.
That's not true. I believe in a thing called dynamic consistency, which I don't know if I made up, or maybe I sort of, with all of my knowledge, my education, I sort of
It's
created
just
this
blended. I love
thing.
it though.
But I call it dynamic consistency. And the root of that is always something. If you are always doing something towards greater health, then you are always consistent and you're doing the thing. You're always doing the thing, and it's beautiful. You get to celebrate everything that you do, all of it. Whether
I
you
love that. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's like if you're always doing something, even if it's not the same thing every day, if you are just inherently like working on that, then that is consistency. Yeah, I totally get the concept of dynamic consistency. That's awesome.
totally.
I think normalize that, like that phrasing, because I think it changes the whole approach to how we move, how we make our choices with our bodies, whether it's food or movement or otherwise. Like it's like, okay, well, is this consistent in a way that's just dynamic enough to let me live still? Because we
Exactly.
got to live, right? That's the whole point.
Yes, exactly. Because if our process is creating so much discomfort and restriction, and we're like hating our way through it,
Mm,
then what is the result really worth? Is the result worth it if the whole way there you're miserable?
mm.
I personally don't think so. I am a very firm believer of just enjoying the moment, and I mean, and I guess I this is the fifth time we've talked about it. Like, enjoy the process, the results will come.
Yeah,
I will always stand by that. Yeah.
yeah.
And
And it's also like trusting the process. One thing that I share, but I've also experienced it in myself, like fitness and otherwise, is it's that consistency and the process that then when I trust it, like that's when it shows up and I get the enjoyment of like having a moment where I'll like put on like an outfit that might have felt uncomfortable before and just feels better. And I go, oh, right. Like all those times that I felt like I wasn't making progress, but just showing up for myself made the difference. And now I feel really good. I feel really confident. and I didn't even notice, like, in a
Yeah.
good way. Yeah.
Yes, yes. In fact, I did some client interviews probably at the start of COVID. And what I noticed, they were like sort of just testimonial interviews and just
Mm,
gathering like what has worked really. And what I found with all of my clients is when they were able to just stop focusing on the like how like on the measurements, right? The scale, all of that, when they're able to stop focusing on that and they just trust the process, they move along,
mm,
they look back and they're like, holy shit, I I lost 20 pounds. I lost
yeah.
30 pounds. And it's like, oh, cool. And it's like that is the difference between them and the person who weighs themselves every other day or whatever. That person, unfortunately, has never reached their goal. And that is the case probably across the board with almost all my clients, which is really fascinating because I might have to go ahead and like pull those numbers and do some research into my own clients because that's extra fascinating. Like they typically don't reach
Yeah.
that goal because they're so stressed, and stress is going to cause more problems for us in the long run
Mhm.
and less results for us in the long run. And I think I'd like to really mention too is that when I did a women's fitness specialist certification at some point, and that whole certification to me it kind of felt like a waste of my life actually because it
Oh,
was just
no.
it was really repetitive of everything I learned. I mean, there was a little bit more about like menopause and things like that, but I was
Mm,
like, cool, I learned more about this just doing random research. Anyway, there was one tidbit that I found, and they cited a piece of research, which I can't remember right now, but I did have to dig into it. And what it had said was that whatever percentage of women, their body image and self confidence increased just because of strength training, not
mhm,
because of results, not because of anything, not because of weight loss, not just because of participating in fitness and in strength training.
mhm.
Because there is something so empowering about feeling strong as hell.
Yeah.
There's nothing else like it.
Yeah. It's changed my entire, like, viewpoint. I am fortunate, like, I haven't had huge typical body issues, but, like, I still have the moments, of course, but, like, since I started strength training, it was just, like, this huge change. I'm like, "Oh, oh, I get it." Like,
Mhm.
I actually love my body for my body because it is strong. Like, it changes your relationship and your perceptions, like, infinitely.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah. Ah, I love that. Oh, this is such, I think it's such powerful stuff and such useful perspective for people, especially at this stage, like in COVID, but at this in this day and age as well, like of, like how we are relearning to perceive what's actually healthy, and bring in the very important and very relevant concepts of mental and emotional health within our physical fitness, and how it's all connected, and it has to be all connected. So thank you so much for sharing all of this wisdom and this insight. It's so helpful and it's so amazing. So I'm so grateful. Where can people find you and your work? Like, I'll include the links in the show notes and captions, but if you want to share.
And thank you so much for having me
Mm.
on. This was a pleasure. And I'm just like, wow, we could talk about this literally all day.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, to hear me and see me talk about it all day, I actually hang out mostly on Facebook, and so just my name on my personal wall is where I hang out the most, where I put out a lot of content. And I have an Instagram. It is More Than Fitness. My business name is called More Than Fitness because it's more than just fitness in the body. And it's got some periods and underscores, but I'll let you throw that into the show
Yeah.
notes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I hope everyone listening or watching has gotten something out of that, because there is so much to have gotten out of that. So, yeah, thank you so, so much for joining me.
Thank
Always
you.
grateful.
Thank you.